This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, Rabbi Sai. A very interesting topic this morning. We just learned in Masechta Tamid, fascinating Mishnah. The Mishnah in Masechta Tamid, which we'll read more in depth in a little bit, tells us about various occurrences that happened in Yericho, that happened in Yerushalayim, that you're able to hear all the way in Yericho. For example, one of the things the Mishnah mentioned, we're going to read this more at length, is that when they opened up the gates of the Heichal, the great doors of the Heichal, the creak it made, the sound it made was audible all the way in Yericho. Yericho was 10 Parsha from Yerushalayim, 40 miles from Yerushalayim, or maybe, 2,000, Parsha is 2,000 mil. A Parsha is 4 mil. That may be 2.6 miles, but Yericho is between 26 and 40 miles from Yerushalayim. And the question is, how would we be able to hear the sounds that took place in Yericho, in Yerushalayim, all the way in Yericho? Okay, we'll come back to that. It's very interesting. In the 10th volume of the Tzitz Eliezer, volume Yud, Chelik Yud, that is the Tzitz Eliezer, Eliezer of Altenburg, Zechatzak Levracha, one of the great poskim of this past generation. He wrote this volume in 1967, and most of the volume is dedicated to various halachos that had come up for the first time when we had access to the Mekaymes HaKadoshim, when we regained access to Shalayim and other cities, Hebron and Yericho. And he discusses many practical questions that came up after 1967. Look at number 1. This is in his introduction. B'chesed Hashem aleinu, u'v'rachamav hagadolim zachinu lachzois lachroina ayin ba'ayin b'shuv Hashem tzion v'hachzaras eretz nachlasei la'am kadshay. In God's great mercy, we have the zchus to see the return of Eretz Yisrael to our hands. He says, "Mamish kachomim hayinu." It's like a dream. That in a few short days, we, instead of being destroyed, it was and he says, even the Goyim acknowledge and believe that Hashem is Elyon, Naira Melech Gadol Kol Haaretz. He says, Kol Shari Haaretz Niftachu L'faneinu, all the gates of the land are open before us. Rav Rubam Shel Hashtachim B'Yadeinu Hema, even the outlying cities are in our possession. V'chol Mekaymes HaKadoshim Tachas Shel Taineinu Hem. Mamish ilufinu malei shira kayam shanein arina kamay galav. And then he offers a tefillah that we should be zaycha, that Eretz Yisrael should be filled with the proper ruach and the proper atmosphere that Hashem intends it to. And then he says the following: Kama boyos chamrus b'halach nasaru ekev akivash v'kabalas habaylos al makayos noisafim be'eretz. Many very important and great issues have arisen because of the conquest of the land, especially in the Mekaymes HaKadoshim, B'Reish Kulam, in Yanei Yerushalayim, and therefore it says at Tzitz Eliezer, I have dedicated volume 10, which is his Truma edition, which is his Meiser edition to the new laws. He calls it, it's Asiri B'Kodesh, to the new laws that have arisen.
What did you say this was?
I believe it's 67. So, the first question that came up is regarding the city of Yericho. Now, what's the issue with the city of Yericho? Right? Now, by the way, just for your information, the way to get to Yericho is not the Jericho Turnpike. Okay? Let's just clarify that. Right? Yericho is a city in Eretz Yisrael. And the question is, what's the question? That Yehoshua ben Nun said that after Yericho is destroyed, whoever rebuilds it, he will lay the foundation with his first son, and he will put up the gates with his last son. In other words, all his children will die. So Yeshua cursed anyone who would build up Yericho. So Mr. Nathan wants to know, if that's the case, how could we go back to Yericho and rebuild it? After all, it's a pasuk in the Navi that you can't do such a thing. It's very dangerous. You're risking your life, right? He says, "V'hinei l'chayra yeshna she'ela chamura b'halacha." Very serious question. In Bechlal Yehei Moter Levnoisa. If Bechlal you're allowed to rebuild Yericho. Because Yoshua put a curse on anyone who comes to rebuild it. So you say, very nice, but we don't paskin halacha from the Navi. I don't know the Navi, right? I didn't learn Navi in yeshiva. I don't have to, right? You know why they don't learn Navi in yeshiva? Because it's a non-for-profit organization, right? So but besides the what?
That's why the CD.
It was a joke.
That's all movement.
Yeah. It was on an old CD. You heard that CD already? Oh, sorry. Okay. The problem is that it's also a Braisa and Sanhedrin, Daf Kuf Yud Gimel, the Hashbas, Yehoshua, the Ha'orah, Shehital al Isha, Yaakov, V'yivna, Yericho, he al. Now you'll say, well, I'll just rename it. It's not Yericho, it's Jericho. Or it's Jericho, right? It's a different name, it's a different city. So the Braisa says, Lo Jericho Hashem Yeraches, it doesn't matter if you call it a different name, or it doesn't matter if you go to a different city and call it Jericho. But then, you look in the Rambam, it's not there. The Rambam does not bring down this halacha. Amnam b'Rambam le'muvaz halach. So you say, no problem. The Rambam doesn't bring it down. I only do what the Rambam tells me to do. The question is, that's not enough of a reason to ignore an explicit halacha in the Gemara. There's no Babli Yerushalmi that argues on that Gemara. And the question is, so why didn't the Rambam bring it down? So he says something unbelievable.
In what halacha should it be?
In Hilchas Eretz Yisrael, in Hilchas Kibush, Hilchas Mamrim, Shoiftim. Meshech Chachma says like this: by the Irani Dachas, you have a Chumash? The Chumash here? By the Irani Dachas, I believe in Yud Gimel Yud Zayin, I think Parshas Re'eh. It says by the Irani Dachas, Irani Dachas is a city that the majority of the inhabitants served Avodah Zarah. The pasuk says, Loi Sivne Oid, cannot be built again. Different than it says by Yerichai. Thank you very much. By the Irani Dachas, thank you. It says Loi Sibane Oid. This is Yud Gimel Yud Zayin. By the Irani Dachas, V'haisa Tel Oilam Loi Sibane Oid. By Yericho, it doesn't say Loi Sibane Oid. It says Loi Sibane. It says the Meshech Chachma. You know what you learn from here. Uve'ir hanidachas kasav Loi Sibane Oid. Nira mishum di Yericho kiven shenivnis shuvim techrav muter levnaisa. The Isser about Yericho is you can't build it up the first time. But once someone went ahead and built it up, the Isser, if someone knocked it down, you can't build it up. But if someone built it up, even if it's destroyed, it should not be built up again. So the Meshech Chachma has an unbelievable diak. By the Irani Dachas it says Loi Sibane Oid. By Yericho it says Loi Sibane. Why? Yericho is only going on the first people to build it up. They're dead meat if they build it. But once they build it, if it's destroyed, you can build it up again. And in fact, Yericho was built and destroyed about 10 times. But in Irani, and what would the logic of that be? Very simple logic. Why can't we rebuild Yericho? What, they did Averos there? No. Because since it was miraculously destroyed, so you want it to forever remain in the state that God destroyed it. But once anyway someone rebuilt it, if it's then destroyed, why can't you build it up? You want that nation who destroyed it, their work should be eternalized? What do we care about that nation who destroyed it? If it's we were supposed to leave it the way that God left it. Once we already changed that, there's no Isser anymore of rebuilding it. But in Irani Dachas, Avodah Zarah was served there. So if Avodah Zarah was served there, it has to be an eternal pile of dirt, of rubbish. That's the difference. So says it Tzitz Eliezer, this little vart of the Meshech Chachma gives us a tremendous understanding into the city of Yericho, why it is permitted for us to rebuild it. He says, look at number 4. Ulam, Ra'ezem Metzia Nifla Matzase. I found a wondrous Metzia. The Sefer Meshech Chachma L'Hagoyin Baal Or Sameach Zal Shemafitza Or Al Talum Azais. He sheds light on this mystery. V'hiloi b'Parshas Re'eh. It's in Parshas Re'eh. Dezais halacha hela b'dvarav habehirim sham. In his illuminating words, he clarifies this issue. T'be'ir hanidachas shekasav lo sivana oid. By the ir hanidachas, where it says, don't build it up again. Af im tivne v'techarev oid. Then, even if it's built and destroyed, lo sivne gamachas, that you can rebuild it. Avo Yericho mikivan shenivnes shuv im techrav muter livnoisa hare lamadnu midivrei goy noilam zeh. We learn from the words of this world-class sage. We learn hilchasa gevirta, a powerful halacha. Sheha Israel b'nias Yericho haisarak ami sheyakum v'yivnoisa l'pam rishayna. It's only going on the person who rebuilds it the first time. And in the parentheses here, the Tzitz Eliezer supplies the logic. V'yitashdesh ayidei kain demus maris chorbana kifi shenechrava ayidei Yeshua b'nisei shamayim gluyim. Because he's sullying, he's dirtying, he's confusing the image of that miraculous destruction. Aval acher b'kanim kvar banu oisa v'nechrav shumatuv noisa. V'harei yadua sheyerichai nivnes v'nechrava kvar kama pamim mezal doros. We know Yericho was knocked down and built up many, many times. The imkain shav mutter shaper l'vnois. If that's the case, it's permitted to rebuild. And that's why the Rambam doesn't bring down the halacha. You know why the Rambam doesn't bring it down? It's not relevant. It's over batal. You could build it now. And now we understand why you look through Tanakh, you look through Shas, you look through Mishnah. Many tzaddikim, gedolim, tanom, and arum. You know where they lived? You know where the residence was? They lived 33. You know, Rechov. Right? They lived in Yericho. How throughout the generations, many God-fearing Jews lived in Yericho. Hein b'mei bayis rishon, hein b'mei bayis sheni, v'gam l'Rabbi sla'achar ha'chorban v'kuvasatam v'chein hala. For example, in Malachim, you had the Bnei HaNeviim that were in Yericho. In Divrei Hayom Beis, you had the Rashi Ephraim. And you have the Mishnah Psachim, Parak Dalad Mishnah Ches, about the 6 things that Anshe Yericho did. And you had, right? You remember that? And you had a Menachos Daf Dalad, that the Anshe Yericho, they cut down they were Makatzer, Baratz and Chachamim. And in the Yerushalmi, that the Amudim that they brought in Yerushalayim, half of that they brought in Yericho, not because they couldn't bring the full amount, but in honor to Yerushalayim. Now, he does raise a very interesting question. That in Shmuel Beis, David sent his men into Yericho, which implies what? That people were living in Yericho before the first time it was built up. Before who built up Yericho? Chiel mi Beis Ha'eli. So how could David tell his men to go live in Yericho before it was built up? Then the Isser was in full force.
But the issue wasn't to live there, it was to build it.
Well, what are you going to do? You're going to live there and it's not... He's going to live in a hole in the ground. So he has one suggestion, that these people of David HaMelech were Avadim, and Avadim is literal. They were Avadim Kananim. They were Goyim. They were Goyim.
Did Yisrael's children get Yericho?
Okay, but they got it before the Klala.
Okay.
Right? That was before even Yehoshua ben Nun put the Klala. But then he quotes from the Shas Tshuva Zichron Yosef, who wants to say that the Isser of building up Yericho is only to build it up in the way it was before, with a wall and a gate and locks. But if you just build it up like Kigaran Hills, that's no problem. In any event, to summarize, the Tzitz Eliezer concludes in Ayin Ches, Al Kapanim Nizbar Lanu, She'ein Mishum Isser Yoshua B'chdei Lahachler Shatzumas Leiv Sheyesh Lasos Lesametz B'chomidas Ha'efsharos. Again, this is not a political statement. He's saying halacha, that don't allow this curse of Yehoshua to frighten you and therefore to weaken your resolve and your interest in keeping Yericho under Jewish control. No. Yehoshua's klala is not lahalacha, Like the Meshech Chochmah says, it doesn't say Lo Sibane Oid, and therefore don't say, yeah, we'll give it away, we'll give it to the Arabs, because anyway we're not allowed to rebuild it. No, Chas v'Shalom. If you know the Meshech Chochmah, if you're Medayik in the Rambam, who does not say this Isser, then it would come out that Yericho is one of the Mekomes HaKadoshim, and Chas v'Shalom to give it away. However, he does conclude that we should be machmir and never rebuild Yericho with a wall around it and a gate, which is very interesting. Now, in this piece, he brings down a fascinating idea regarding Nablus. What's Nablus? Shechem. That there is an ancient tradition, Shechem. It's brought down in the Sefer Shalos Teshuvos Yayin HaTov. In the name of the Sefer Tnufa Chayim, that Moron Maharika put a cherem that you're not allowed to live in Shechem. Interesting. Now, unfortunately, you see what's going on in Shechem and the way they desecrate the kever of Yosef HaTzadik. But it's recorded over here. There's an ancient tradition and a cherem against living in the city of Shechem. Well, let's just take the facts first. It's a fact. Now let's see why. So the reason why is because since there were so many other holy places in Eretz Yisrael, like Hebron and Tiberia and Tzfas and other Mekomes HaKadoshim, they first wanted to settle the holy cities. Says at Tzitz Eliezer, Venera Barer, even if we accept the fact that this cherem exists, the only reason for it is to be able to settle the rest of the Eretz Yisrael, where in those days there was a very small settlement, and therefore they put a cherem. But nowadays, where the Yishuv in Eretz Yisrael is very widespread, says the Tzitz Eliezer, there is no such cherem on living in Shechem. Now, you may not want to live there for safety reasons, but if you're worried about the cherem, so that you don't have to worry about. Okay, now, ready? The grand finale. The grand finale. Why did you? Who? Yoshua. He wanted everyone to see the miraculous destruction of Yericho. Okay, now let's get back to our Mishnah Masechta Tamid. The Mishnah said an amazing thing. Look at number 5. Mi Yerichai hayushaymin kol shar hagado sheniftach. From Yericho they heard the sound of the gate that opened. Mi Yerichai hayushaymin kol hamagrefa. From Yericho they would hear the musical instrument, the shovel that had the 10 holes, that each hole played 10 types of sound. Mi Yerichai hayushaymin kol ha'etz. They heard the wooden pulley system. Sha'asa ben katan muchani lakiyar. That ben katan made for the kiyar, so that the water should not be over the ground and there would be no Israelina. Mi Yerichai hayushaymin kol gavini karas. They heard the crier, Gavini, say, "Wake up! Wake up!" Right? Ezra Klein was thinking of hiring someone to walk through, midway through the shiur, just, okay. We're working on it. Okay. Mi Yerichai hayushaymin kol hachalil. In Yericho they heard the sound of the cymbal. Mi Yerichai hayushaymin kol hatziltzal. Mi Yerichai, what, it's my fault? It's true, Friday night, how do you think I put my kids to sleep? I tell them my drasha, and it works every time. Okay. Mi Yerichai hayushaymin kol hashir. They heard the sound of the Shiur Leviim. Yerichai hayushaymin kol hashofar. They heard the sound of the shofar that accompanied the Karban Tamid. V'yesh oimrim af kodesh shel kohen gadol b'shah shu mazker es Hashem b'yom HaKippurim. By the way, I want you to know, look at what Mishnah this is. This is Mishnah Ches. So, your wife, you're going to come home today. Your wife's going to what did you learn? You're going to say, I only learned one Mishnah. No, you have to know. In the Gemara, it's only one Mishnah. It's really 8 different Mishnayos. So you learn 8 Mishnayos, at least. I think it's more even. Maybe 10 Mishnayos. Okay. Then, and in fact, not only did they smell the pitum haktaires, the goats used to sneeze from the aroma of the ktaires that wafted all the way to Yericho. And the question is, Rabbi say, did they actually see and hear and smell these things all the way in Yericho? What they actually heard, the Kohen Gadol? So we learned different pshatim. The Rosh said there was an underground tunnel that Tzidkiyahu dug from Yerushalayim to Yericho, or the Ravid says either Yericho had no mountains in between, or Yericho was very high up, and they were able to hear. However, we did not learn another comment on the Ravid. Yeah, Yericho, not higher than Yerushalayim, but higher.
Okay, worse than it is now.
Maybe yeah. Everything shrinks with age. So, but that was a possibility of the Ravid. But we did not learn an unbelievable thing that the Ravid says, and you have it on your sheet. I'm going to read it to you from the original Ravid, and you could follow along in the Tzitz Eliezer. Umayri harav hachosid zalamar.
Where is it? In the second paragraph.
Yeah, if you have an old Gemara Tamid, it's in there. It should be in there on Daf Lamed Amud. You can follow it in there, or you could follow it paraphrased in the Tzitz Eliezer. I'm reading to you the original. I'll read it slowly and I'll translate. Umayri harav hachosid zalamar. The Rabbi is saying, my Rebbe taught me. D'chol hanach diktani shahayu nishman biyerichai mas anisim hayu. It was a miracle. The fact that they heard all these 10 things in Yericho were a miracle. B'davka haya b'yerichai nishman. Only in Yerichai v'loi b'shar tzadim. Why? Mipnei sheyerichai haisa k'may Yerushalayim. Yerichai is just like Yerushalayim. Now that's a very big chiddush. We're accustomed to talking about the holy cities in Eretz Yisrael, Yerushalayim, Hebron, Tzfas, Tiberia. I don't think you'll ever hear anyone say Yerichai. Says the Ravid in the name of his Rebbe. That's because Yerichai and Yerushalayim are the same. Why? Mibnei shehi hoisat chilas kibush Eretz Yisrael. It was the first city conquered, and it's like the truma of Eretz Yisrael. Why did Yoshua say never rebuild it? A new reason. You ready for this? Not to commemorate the miraculous conquest, because it's like truma. The same way you have a big field, you take some of the grain off and you say that's for God. Yerichai was dedicated for the Ribono Shel Olam. It's the truma of Eretz Yisrael. Uchmai the truma as dagan tzarach litroim kein nitruma Eretz Yisrael atzma uveshvil kach hitrima Yoshua lios kodesh. Therefore it's like Yerushalayim. And whatever happened in Yerushalayim, miraculously it happened in Yerichai. You heard it in Yerichai, you saw it in Yerichai, you smelled it in Yerichai. Why did Hashem make this miracle? Hashem doesn't make miracles for nothing. Kedei sheyagishu b'nei adam, so that people should feel shebiyericha yesh kamay kein ktsas kedusha kamay b'Yerushalayim. That people should recognize and feel that Yerichai has some kedusha like Yerushalayim. Now, why dafka these miracles? The answer is the avodos that took place in the Beis Hamikdash, where Nisra, you felt it in Yerichai, because Hashem wanted people to have the feeling that Yerichai had kedusha like Yerushalayim. Ulefikach be'ela yoser mishar dvarim, mibnei shekol elu hadvarim kol hashar hagadol, the sound of the opening of the Heichal, and the symbols, and the waking up of the Kohanim, and the Ketores. That was the Avodah, and we wanted it to be felt in Yerichai, so that people should be margish that Yerichai has Kedushas Yerushalayim. Now, look at what the Tzitz Eliezer says. Look at number 6. He starts off by quoting the Ravid, and he says, this Ravid, he says, Haske, Hasibas, Sumas Le Miuchedes, we should pay special attention. Sheyesh Lasos Le'er Azos. Why? So it's interesting. If somebody were to rank the Kedusha of the various cities, maybe, we saw the Chesed Avram says, number 1 was Tzvas. Right? Some Sofer said, no, that's except Yerushalayim. I don't know if you ever hear Yerichai mentioned in the equation, but says the Ravid a Rishain, in the name of his Rebbe, that Yerichai has some Kedusha from Yerushalayim. So he says like this, says it Tzitz Eliezer, it is no coincidence then. Again, I don't say anything for political reasons, I'm just reporting the facts. And these are the facts reported by the Tzitz Eliezer. That within moments of the conquest of Yerushalayim in 1967, oddly, Yerichai was conquered at the same exact time. Again, I'm not taking issue, I'm not taking sides, I'm just reporting the facts. The facts are, that says the Tzitz Eliezer, Lemikra, Divrei Rabbeinu Harav Eila, B'Shem Mori Harav HaChassid, based on the words of the Ravid, in the name of his Rebbe, Yeshna Hargasha B'Pnimius Halev. Says it to Tzitzel, we have an inner feeling. Ki'ilu Alkein Gam B'Yameinu Anu Nechbesha Yericha Yachadim Yushalayim. That is why, even today, in our times, Yericha and Yerushalayim were conquered together. Kefisha Karbel Mechemes Sheisha Sayamim, like it happened in the 6-day war. Why? Kedei Sheyisoyru B'nei Yisrael V'Yargishu, so that Klal Yisrael should have the feeling Sheyeshnai Kesher Shel Kedusha Bein Yerushalayim Lebein Yehuda. There is some kind of underlying spiritual, sanctified connection between these two cities. And then Tzitzel Yezer adds an amazing thing. He writes, based on the Sifri, that when Klal Yisrael were distributing the land of Israel, they quarantined off 500 amos by 500 amos in Yerichai, and they said like this: whoever allows us to build the Beis Hamikdash in their part of Yerushalayim will get the 500 amos by 500 amos in Yerichai. Says it to Eliezer, how big is the Har HaBayis? He said only somebody who would have learned Masechta Midos could know that. So luckily we learned Masechta Midos recently. And on Daf Lamed Daled Amud Beis in Masechta Midos it says Har HaBayis was 500 amos by 500. So this is to think about it. What kind of replacement is it to give away part of Yerushalayim, 500 amos, and to get in return 500 amos in Yerichai? What do the two have to do with each other? He says, according to the Ravid, it's beautiful. Yerichai is somehow Yerushalayim. It's connected to Yerushalayim. If you give up 500 amos in Yerushalayim as a payment, you are going to get 500 amos in Yerichai. It's an amazing thing. So let's take a look over here. He says, it's quite interesting. Sheba Yerichai Hiktzu Gam Makoy Meyuchad Shegadol B'Midasa Kemidas Godloi Shel Har HaBayis B'Yerushalayim. That unbelievably, the measurement of Yerichai is the same measurement as the Har HaBayis. K'de'isa b'Sifri in Bamidbar Amro K'shal Yusah Mechalkim Es Haaretz. When Klal Yisrael distributed the land, Hinichu Doshno Shel Yerichai, they left the fattest part of Yerichai. Tav Kof Ama al Tav Kof Amra. Amru, they said, Kalmi Sheyivne Beis HaBechira Bechelkai. Anyone who builds the Beis Hamikdash in a Shiur, Yital Doshna Shal Yerichai, will take the fattest part of Yerichai. V'nidmeh, and it would seem to me, says the Tzitzel Yezer, Shekol Ha'el Emes B'Shal S'Tshuva Zichron Yosef, that the Zichron Yosef hit the nail on the head, because he explains what's the connection between the 500 amos of Yerichai and the 500 amos of Yerushalayim. Shemevar, he explains Shemishum Kach Yichtoi Kamida Hazais. Why this measurement? B'mnei shaharei yachzar l'shevet asher yivna beis hamikdash v'chelkai tav kof ama min achalasai al kain hutzru chalitein loy tmurasam tushno shel Yerichai. Says it to Eliezer, why am I telling you all this? I'm tough for the following reason. The same way no Jew would ever say, Yerushalayim, we don't really need it right now, we'll wait till Mashiach comes. Who needs Yerushalayim? It's good enough to have, Queens. Nobody would ever say such a thing. Of course, no Jew would give up Yerushalayim. Says the Tzitzel Yezer, the same feeling we should have about the city of Yerichai, that has some kind of spiritual connection with the city of Yerushalayim. It's the same measurement. The nisim of Yerushalayim were nisragesh, were felt, were heard, were smelled all the way in Yerichai. And that is another amazing meaning of the mission we just learned today, that all these miracles that happened in Yerushalayim were heard.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.